Good morning, my dear students. Welcome to another class on General English paper. So, in the last two classes, we have already covered two poems. We have discussed them, and I hope that these lessons were beneficial for you. And thank you for staying tuned for the next lesson. So, in today's class, we'll be discussing Wole Soyinka's poem, Telephone Conversation. Before going into the details of the poem, let's discuss about our author, Wole Soyinka. His real name is Akinwande Oluwole Babtunde Soyinka. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. And he's better known to the world as Wole Soyinka. He is a very famous Nigerian poet, playwright, and novelist. He was awarded with the 1986 Nobel Prize in Literature, and he was the first sub-Saharan African to receive this great honor. And regarding his personal life, he was born into a Yoruba family. He belonged to the Yoruba tribe speaking their language. He was educated in Nigeria and also in London. And what is peculiar about him is that he was very active in Nigeria's political history, especially in the independence struggle. He was imprisoned during Nigerian civil war and all. And Soyinka always used his poetry and drama as a mouthpiece for his political criticism. So whatever he was doing in his personal life, in his political affiliations, he mirrored them in his poetry too. Especially conflicts between tradition and modernity, racism, etc. These are all themes which figure in his poetry and drama. Some of his important plays are The Lion and the Jewel, A Dance of the Forest, The Strong Breed, Death and the King's Horseman, etc. And some of his poetry collections are A Shuttle in the Crypt, Mandela's Earth, and other poems. And this particular poem which we have to learn, Telephone Conversation, it appeared in Modern Poetry from Africa. First, let's start by reading this wonderful poem, Telephone Conversation. So as the name implies, this is actually an exchange between a man and a woman over telephone. So this is actually a telephone conversation that we are hearing or we are reading. Let's see how it goes. The price seemed reasonable, location indifferent. The landlady swore she lived off premises. Nothing remained but self-confession. Madam, I want. I hate a wasted journey. I am African. Silence. Silenced transmission of pressurized good breeding. Voice when it came, lipstick coated, long gold rolled, cigarette holder pipped. Caught I was foully. How dark? I had not misheard. Are you light or very dark? Button B, button A, stench of rancid breath of public hide and speak. Red booth, red pillar box, red double-tiered omnibus squelching tar. It was real. Shamed by ill-mannered silence, surrender pushed dumbfoundment to beg simplification. Considerate she was, varying the emphasis. Are you dark or very light? Revelation came. You mean like plain or milk chocolate? Her accent was clinical, crushing in its light impersonality. Rapidly, wavelength adjusted, I chose West African sepia. And as afterthought, down in my passport, silenced for spectroscopic flight of fantasy till truthfulness changed her accent hard on the mouthpiece. What's that? Conceding, don't know what that is. Like brunette. That's dark, isn't it? Not altogether. Facially, I am brunette. But madam, you should see the rest of me. Palm of my hand, soles of my feet are a peroxide blonde. Friction caused by, foolishly madam, by sitting down has turned my bottom raven black. One moment, madam, sensing her receiver rearing on the thunderclap about my ears. Madam, I pleaded, wouldn't you rather see for yourself? Let's now move on to discuss what this wonderful poem tries to communicate. So, when we read the opening lines of the poem, it makes it clear that it is actually a recounting of a telephone conversation between two people. One of them is a black man, an African man, and the other one is a white woman. So the former, the black man, is actually speaking from a telephone booth. So it becomes very apparent that this is a telephone conversation. And the topic of this conversation is about renting a property for living. So we don't know what kind of property he is trying to rent, whether it is an apartment or a room or a house. We are not aware at this point. But from the very first lines, it becomes revealed. It is revealed that this man and this woman are talking about renting a property. And at first, anyway, the talk must be about the property, the facilities, and all. So the man finds the property quite agreeable. The price is reasonable. The location is actually indifferent to the tenant's class and race. So he finds that this is a place which he could stay at. So at the outset itself, in the first line itself, first two lines itself, there is actually a foreshadowing. There is a hint given that men of color or people of color face many difficulties to find lodgings in this world. The world is actually tainted by racial segregation. Everywhere, especially at the point of time this poem was written, that is in early 60s, racial segregation was practiced in many parts of the world. Certain streets, certain localities were reserved for white people, certain localities were reserved for black people. So it was during such a time that this man was trying to find lodgings. And he found that this place was quite agreeable. The location is good and it is indifferent. People don't actually care much about the tenant's class and race and all. So after finding everything agreeable, there is nothing much to talk about now. Now the man feels an inclination to reveal his racial identity. He wants to reveal that he is African. How is this relevant in this context? Why should he actually say over the phone to this lady that he is African? So he confesses. So he means it as a confession. It is actually said here, self-confession. So when you confess something, you are actually confessing to a fault or a mistake which happened. But one's race is not one's mistake. So this man feels an inclination to reveal himself to be African. And when he makes the revelation, we actually feel quite disturbed. Like, why does this man want to reveal his racial identity over the phone? So he says that I hate a wasted journey. See, madam, before I take a bus or take a train and travel to whatever location you are at, I want to reveal something, that I'm actually an African. So this revelation is actually followed by silence from the other end. The lady is actually not talking anything back. So there is, here you can see, read the lines, silenced transmission of pressurized good breeding. So why is there a long silence? There is a prolonged silence from the other end. So the man is actually presuming that, he imagines that this long silence might mean a polite refusal of the offer. Maybe the lady, when she came to know that this scholar is actually African, she's quite, she doesn't want to turn him down using words. That might be why she's giving him the silent treatment. At first, maybe the man thinks that. But actually, in reality, during the silence, there is a struggle from the other end of the telephone between racial prejudice and good breeding. So this lady, this particular white lady, obviously had a good upbringing. She is supposed to behave in a certain way. She has to keep up certain manners and etiquettes. At the same time, she has been subjected to generations of racial prejudice. She has believed that her whole belief system depends on race. She believes that black people are lesser individuals. So there is a mental tug of war happening in her mind between racial prejudice and good breeding. Now the man mentally prepares himself to get off the call. Maybe he believes that this is actually a lost cause. He is not going to get this house. But then at the moment he's preparing to get off the call, he receives another query from the other end. He receives another question from the other end. Now the voice he hears from the other end, he makes certain assumptions about this lady as well. So when he hears her voice, he imagines the owner of this voice to be wearing a heavy coating of lipstick and holding a long gold rolled cigarette holder pit. So that's how he imagines this lady, wearing a thick smear of lipstick and holding a long gold coated cigarette holder. But the lady, when she speaks to him, she asks him a very simple question. How dark? How dark are you? Now this question is quite shocking and rude. The man is taken aback for a moment. He even thinks that he might have heard the lady wrong. So he's quite, stunned at this moment. And then she makes herself clear. Are you light or very dark? So, for a second he thinks that, he might have misheard. But then the lady clears herself. Are you light or very dark? At this point of time, when she repeats her query very clearly, this man is standing in the phone booth. He has a telephone in front of him. He's fiddling with the buttons of the telephone. There are various buttons in the telephone. There is a button B and a button A. Now he is given two options. Are you light? Are you very dark? So there are two options. He is one or the other. So a human being is a lot more than the color of his skin. He is not either light or very dark. So now he feels like this particular question has actually reduced him to two categories. Like he has to choose a button A or a button B. If he chooses a button A, he might be light. If he chooses the button B, he might be very dark. Now he feels like this rude question is actually reducing his identity to two options, like choosing between button A and button B of the phone. Now the man becomes very uncomfortable as he is asked again whether he is light or very dark. This awkward question makes him very uncomfortable and he becomes aware of the suffocating surroundings. He is actually in a narrow telephone booth. There is a stench inside the public telephone booth because many people use the telephone booth to disclose their secrets and desires to the other end of the telephone. So he feels all of a sudden very crowded inside the public telephone booth. And then he looks around and he notices a lot of colors around him, and in particular he notices the color red around him. So he becomes aware of the red telephone booth, the red post box and the red omnibus outside. It all catches his eye, and these very strong images in red reminds him of the relevance of colors and their defining properties in the world. Now red is actually a color which is very noticeable. It catches the eye very soon. It also stands for a lot of, it is very symbolic, right? It stands for love, it stands for violence, and all. So he's now actually pondering about the relevance of this question about skin color, and he becomes increasingly aware of the presence and strength of colors around him. And the man is now getting lost in thoughts, whereas the woman has posited that question a little while back. Now he is giving her the silent treatment. That is because he got so shocked at this rude question. So there is a rude and uncomfortable silence which is growing in the telephone, on the telephone. Now the lady again asks him once again. So again, he feels like there is a shamed but ill-mannered silence. A silence is actually lurking between the man and the woman on the telephone. Now the lady actually feels like maybe she should put the question in a much simpler way. She should make it simple. Instead of asking, are you light or very dark? She should make it a little more simple. But before making it simple, for emphasis, she asks again, are you dark or very light? Now the man decides to answer her. He clarifies about the question. You mean like plain or milk chocolate? Do you mean like I'm of the color of plain chocolate or milk chocolate? Is that what you're asking me? And even when the man actually, till now he thought like this was a joke. But maybe at this point of time he realizes that this is not a joke. This lady is actually quite serious about this question, because the accent was clinical. It's as if she's trying to find answer to a scientific query. So there is nothing impersonal about this question. She's very curious, and she has the scientific tendency to know the reality, the truth. Now he decides to answer this question, but at the same time he finds it very humiliating, or even the reader finds it very humiliating, that a living, breathing individual who is standing in the telephone booth is being categorized into different classes of varying colors. This is actually an insulting thought indeed. So the man feels like the queries of the woman about the color are quite clinical. We mentioned that. Now he finally comes to terms with the gravity of the inquiry. Now he understands that the lady is actually quite serious about this inquiry, and he very casually he replies that his skin color is West African sepia. Now this man, definitely this question has hurt his dignity, but he decides to answer this query in a jocular vein, humorously. So he repeats again, that in his passport his color is West African sepia. So now the lady doesn't understand what West African sepia is. So now her tone has changed a little bit, because till then her accent actually was a little, it suggested good breeding and all. Now she asks, what's that? Don't know what that is. I don't know what West African sepia is. Now he answers, it's like brunette. Oh, that's dark, isn't it? So brunette, the lady says, like brunette? But brunette is dark, so are you dark? Now he finally decides to answer this rude question with a lot of humor and sarcasm. He says, not altogether, I'm not all dark. I'm not all dark all over my body. So facially I am brunette. On my face is brunette. I already mentioned it's quite dark, but the rest, you should actually see the rest of my body, ma'am. You should actually look at my palms and the soles of my feet. Those are quite white. It's like the color of bleached blonde hair. My palms and the soles of my feet, they are like bleached blonde hair. But unfortunately, ma'am, the rest of my body, it cannot actually stand for that, because for many generations or many years I have just sat down on the ground, and that has created a lot of friction, and because of friction my butt is as black as a raven. In my buttocks, those are really black in color. But wait, hang on a minute. Now this lady now realizes that this guy is actually making fun of her. So realizing that this black man is actually taunting her now, the white woman prepares to slam down the phone, but the man senses that this lady is about to hang up the phone at any second. And then this man asks, but hang on, ma'am, wait for a second. Don't you want to see for yourself? Do you want to see my skin color? Rather, would you like to examine my black butt? So this is actually a very sarcastic and jocular ending of the poem. It follows the humiliating situation brought forth by the racism in the lady. So it's not the racism followed by a single person, it's actually racism endorsed by generations, by centuries. So it has become part of the subconscious that there is much prejudice based on race and color in white people. It is one of their representatives who was this lady. So this particular ending can be actually thought of as a slap in the face of racism in a much humorous way. Let's quickly discuss the themes of this poem. First theme is racism, first of all. So the theme of racism is established at the very start of the poem. The poet uses the literary device called foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is when we are given hints to what will happen in the future. So the man, when he explains that the location was good and that it is indifferent to race, there is a presupposition, there is a foreshadowing that the racist tendencies that remain in the world actually makes it quite difficult for black people to find lodgings. So in addition, the caller finds it necessary to reveal his racial identity. Why does the caller actually need to confess as if he has done some crime, that he is black, that he is African? Then comes the rude queries about the man's skin color, which is put across by this potential landlady. She doesn't even think for a second before trying to humiliate him with these rude questions. So it hints us how race is a part of the mental makeup of a community. This community is divided on the basis of color. So it might have been because of the centuries of emotional abuse and discrimination and segregation. And all this prompted the man to reply to this rude query in a different way, using humor, disdain, and sarcasm. Another theme is identity. Our identity is not, we don't have a singular identity. What we are is actually the result of many different motivations, many different reasons. So we all have complexity of identity. But at the start, both the speakers, they do not see each other, but both of them form opinions about each other. Before revealing that this man is African, the lady, we don't know about the lady's perspective, but the man actually has certain opinions about the other's identity. Judging by her voice, he imagines her to wear lipstick and hold a cigarette holder, etc. So the man forms a mental image of his potential landlady. And he also, because he feels like this lady has good manners. But the woman is much rude in her behavior, because she just wants to put him in a category based on skin color. Are you like milk chocolate? Are you like plain chocolate? So she just wants to put him in a category. And this is reinforced throughout the poem, that a man's identity is not comprised of something as shallow as race and color. So it is actually, the skin color is not actually that important. That is why it is stressed towards the end of the poem that even the color of the skin varies in different parts of the human body. That is why skin color cannot be taken as a quotient for identifying you or for putting you in a category. Now, precisely like this, a person's identity, it doesn't fit into one category or another. A person's identity is composite of multiple motivations, multiple beliefs, and multiple beginnings of the individual. So with this, we have come to the end of today's class. I hope this poem was enjoyable to you and that you benefited from this class. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.